Okay, so thank you all so much for joining us. This is part 3 of the education webinar series. And today we will, as the webinar post suggests, we will review the sample application and narrative response checklist and do a bit of a deep dive as well, and more about that in a second. However, just a quick recap, in webinar 1, we went over our history and background, the roles that our staff and volunteers play throughout the process, and key policies and procedures. In part 2, we had a deep dive into EC Impact and registering your agency and navigating the grant portal to help you complete your eligibility and your eligibility determination, your organization and financial review information. That's what I was looking for. So these 2 recordings will be available tomorrow in the procedure and key dates file, as we will be updating those documents with hyperlinks to the videos. They will also be found in the Resource Center within EC Impact. But today's webinar content really has us looking at the hierarchy of language and reviewing the strategic investment plan. So our priorities and strategies, and looking at the application and the narrative response checklist and the various other tools that we've developed to help you put forth the best application you possibly can. So first things first, our hierarchy of language. Each issue area, basic needs, education, financial stability, and health, has a vision statement that really helps encapsulate what the Vision Council is trying to achieve. Then they have priorities. These are strategies to help us really get to that vision. And then under our priorities, we have the strategies or activities that we are pursuing to fund that will help us achieve our priorities and then up to the vision statement. So as you are writing your narrative application, what you want to do is draw a thread from your program to the strategy or strategies that you're addressing, to the priority, and then back to the vision statement. And again, we've created documents to help you do this, but if you don't draw this correlation, your application will not receive as many points as possible. So the vision statement for education is helping children learn, achieve, and succeed while engaging families and communities. This is very, very important. So everything that you write about within your applications should be able to demonstrate how you are helping children learn, how you're helping them achieve and succeed, and then how are you engaging families and communities in the process. So the overview of our investment priorities. This issue area, education, receives approximately 42 to 48% of the community fund. This is our largest impact focus. And this year, those percentage ranges still stand. However, with the introduction of our cross issue area, this doesn't look exactly like it's represented, because the cross issue area grant opportunity does not have an estimated funding range. And if you're interested in more about the cross issue area funding opportunity, you can listen to the webinar later on today. However, so for an example, if cross issue area, if there are $200,000 worth of applications that come through that are all worthy of funding, and we have $1 million to allocate for the community fund, the Vision Council will fund the cross issue areas first. So $200,000 will be removed from the top, and then the remaining $800,000 will be distributed throughout the other issue areas. They're not going to sit and try and slice and dice, oh, well, this is a financial stability and health program, or, oh, this is an education and health program. They're not going to sit and try to do that. It's just off of the top, and then the remaining funds are redistributed through the single issue area opportunities. With that said, there's no need to be concerned, because what the Vision Councils will be after is creating the best investment portfolio possible to get the greatest return on investment. So they really have to monitor and really weigh their options as far as, are the programs being introduced under a cross issue area going to get the greatest return on investment, or do we need to still balance it out with single issue area focused programs in one of our other 4 areas? So there is no minimum or no maximum to the cross issue area funding opportunity. So they don't have to fund anything if they don't want to, but there's also no cap. But again, I assure you that the vision councils are going to be looking for the best investment strategies in order to move our community forward. So who are we focused on in targeting with our education work? This is at-risk children residing in Sangamon and Menard counties. The definition of at risk, while we provide an example of what this could mean within our request for application, it is up to your program to define what risk factors your children present that qualify them as at risk for this grant opportunity. Then we have our priorities. So we have 3 priorities under education. We have children enter kindergarten prepared with the skills needed to succeed. And this is focused on ages birth to 5, and it can include prenatal as well, with a portion of focus being 33 to 45%. What that means, the portion of focus, that is if everything goes as planned and say we have again, we're using $1 million because it's easy to divide. If we have $1 million to allocate within education, then that means 33,000 to 45,000, I'm sorry, 330,000 to 450,000 of that would be focused on early childhood. And then you can see the portions of focus laid out for the other priorities as well. But that is if it's a perfect scenario. If we receive no applications in one of these other priority areas or no quality applications in one of the priority areas, we are not going to set aside that money. We will invest what we absolutely can in the best programs that we possibly can. But if we had everything the way we wanted it, this is how that money would be divided in a perfect world. So then our second priority, children reach academic milestones on time and successfully transition to middle school, again, focused on grades K through 5. And then youth reach academic milestones on time, transition to high school and develop a plan for life after high school. And that is focused on grades 6 through 12. So within our issue areas, sometimes there are stipulations to funding. And in education, there's probably the most because they have been the most aggressive on trying to get common practice established among the programs that we fund. So if you receive funding under education, whether you are new or old, you must participate in the Education Data Collaborative. Now, if you are an early childhood program, most likely this is going to look a little different for you, but if you serve K-5 populations, for sure you are a part of the Education Data Collaborative. In the prior years, this was an option. So if you miss deadlines as part of the Education Data Collaborative moving forward, this will be counted against you for further funding. So you must make sure that you are able to participate in the Data Collaborative. And if you have more questions about that, you can read the MOU and you can also call myself or Mitch Baker. All programs should have components of parent and/or community engagement. Again, this is stated within the vision statement. However, we know that some programs, there are times where parent engagement is impossible or your program is not set up that way. If for some reason this is the case, you will have to go through the rigor of explaining why. But for all other programs where parent engagement is possible, you need to really be doing your best to keep them engaged. Just because parents don't come, you know, if you set up 100 meetings and they never come to the 100th, they might come to that 101st, and that might be that might be the turning point for your relationship with them and their relationship to their child's education. And so we always want to continue to be providing those opportunities. And on the flip side, we want to make sure that in order to bring capacity and put strong adults into the lives of children, we want community engagement to be happening across the board. So again, we would love to see volunteers be embedded within your programs, but if that's not the case, then you may be asked to define why you are not using volunteers to support your program. And then last but certainly not least, all programs should have completed the 10 baseline ACEs toxic stress BIS trainings created in partnership with Springfield Public Schools. This has been an evolution if you've been paying attention over the last 4 to 5 years. It started out with just asking in our first grant, what was your awareness of adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress? Then the next funding cycle, we asked for all programs to create a plan and to begin executing that plan. And what we found were those plans were completely different across the board. So the Vision Council wanted to put together training that then would become universal to help create a common language and a common approach to addressing ACEs, toxic stress, and most importantly, because a majority of our funding for this area is focused within Springfield Public Schools, we wanted to make sure that our best practices were aligning with their best practices. And so that way, children receiving great care within the public school system would receive that great care coming into our after school or summer or whatever program. With that said, if you did not participate in that first round where we did train the trainer with our 10 baseline trainings, which are all found on our website and are mentioned within our request for application and strategic investment plan, you must complete this within a year. So you'll have a year to comply with this stipulation. And all of the other programs who have been through these trainings will have to articulate what have they done in order to make sure their staff in training, and they'll have to give an update on how many of their staff have been trained on all 10, how many of their volunteers have been trained on all 10, etc. Or what's their progress towards all 10. So priority 1 and strategies. This is where we're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive into what we mean with our strategies and priorities and how best to articulate this within your narrative application. So with our birth to 5 or our prenatal to 5, children enter kindergarten prepared with the skills needed to succeed priority, we have 2 strategies. And this really comes down to providing children home visiting experiences, again, high quality, evidence-based home visiting experiences or interventions. If they are not going to be in a structured learning environment, we need to find programs that are helping us reach these children where they are currently at, and that is most likely in their home or in the home of their friend or family. And then secondly, in this priority, we have at-risk children are enrolled in ongoing high-quality evidence-based preschool experiences. This can also be considered preschool-like experiences. We need to make sure, again, as I said earlier, that children are able to access structured, rich learning environments. So that way, when it comes to kindergarten, they have some of the skills that they need in order to be successful. So looking at our K-5 population, children reach academic milestones on time and successfully transition to middle school. If you are writing to this strategy, to this priority, you must ensure that you are addressing how you are helping children reach academic milestones on time and also successfully transitioning to middle school. This should be a component of your program. And so you'll need to be able to address what that looks like. We don't have a one-size-fits-all definition of what that successful transition looks like or what that should be looking like in your programs, but you as a program should be identifying what best practices you have in place to help that 5th grader transition into 6th grade, or what you're doing along the continuum of K to 5 to prepare them for that transition to middle school. So we have two strategies. At-risk children will have supports to help them achieve on-time 3rd grade reading and or 5th grade math skills. And this is really, so while we name 3rd grade reading and 5th grade math, we don't just want to see 3rd graders reading on time and 5th graders reading on time. We want kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, all of the ages to be achieving reading and math on time as far as their grade level goes. But we use 3rd grade and 5th grade as key benchmark years. And so that is why they are named. And so if you're applying under this strategy and you do not select growth in reading or growth in math, then you will not move forward because I'll have to call you and have a conversation of like why those were not selected, etc. So that's really critically important that you make sure that you have indicators that are aligning with the strategies when you are selecting them in the eligibility process. And the second strategy is at-risk children will have supports to help them improve their social, emotional, and behavioral development. Here's the critical piece of this. Social emotional learning and behavioral development, in order to connect it back to academic milestones and achieving those on time, you must be selecting attendance or behavior decreases within this strategy. It's not just, oh, this tool tells us that they're doing better social emotionally. However, we're not tracking attendance or behavior. That will not move forward. So you want to make sure that if you're addressing social emotional development, you have attendance and behavior as part of your, is this really helping them shift their mindset to help them achieve academic milestones on time? So then priority 3, in this there are 4 strategies. Youth reach academic milestones on time, transition to high school, and develop a plan for life after high school. Now, this priority is written a little bit differently in the sense that if they are already in high school with this priority, they can't transition to high school. So if you're serving middle schoolers, yes, you want to be telling Division Council how you're helping these middle schoolers transition to high school. We also want to focus across the continuum from 6th to 12th grade, reaching academic milestones on time. And then while we would love to see every program doing this, we know that that's not the case, and we have specific strategies that connect to this one. Develop a plan for life after high school. So most likely it is more truncated than a priority 2 was, where you had to make sure you were addressing both points. So the first strategy under priority 3, at-risk youth will have supports to help them achieve on time academically. Again, we name math and English, and we have 2 benchmark years within that. So make sure though that you're looking at on-time achievement within those 2 areas, or at least one of those areas, in order to be able to satisfactorily address this strategy. The second strategy, at-risk youth will have supports to help them improve their social emotional development, and not just behavioral development. Again, as part of this strategy, you must be addressing attendance or behavior. With strategy 3, this is where it really starts with our 6th graders. In a perfect world, it would be 5th grade, but 6th graders, and you're helping them create plans for life after high school. Now, just because you might start with a 6th grader and they want to be a beautician in 6th grade or a basketball player, we are not saying that they have to stay on that path forever and ever and ever. It's just saying that we need to help them start to understand what goals are and what steps are needed to take in order to get there. So it might be as part of this program that they then get to meet with a beautician, or they get to see a beauty school or barber school or whatever. And then they start to check that off. They can then change what career they want in their future. And then again, then they reassess where those benchmarks are. So that is something that we have been unable to fund because we currently have no programs doing this to our knowledge. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but we would love to see it starting as early as 6th grade. And I hope that we see some programs coming to us this year with that. And then we have at-risk 11th and 12th grade students will have a plan for after high school and will achieve planned benchmarks. Now, again, I hope you all have read the request for application, but I will go a little bit more in depth with this in the sense that this is really focused on 11th and 12th graders, helping them prepare for the trades, for college, career, or the service, and having the support after they graduate in order to achieve whatever it is they wanted to achieve. So we know that there are a lot of students that when it comes to saying that they want to go to college, there's going to be many students who get accepted into college and then never make it there on their first day. And so we want to help to kind of circumvent that and provide the supports needed to help achieve that. So that is the end of kind of the deeper dive. Now we are going to transition over to what resources are available on the website. So hopefully everyone has navigated to this. You can find it by going to news. So we are on the Springfield United Way website. Go to news, go to request for applications, now live. Click here, and that will take you to this magical page which has all of the resources you possibly need. The recordings of the webinars, they will be available in the procedure and key dates file as of tomorrow, so please be paying attention to that. But we have our sample application here. This application will most likely really not change from here until December when you officially receive access. So please, please, please start crafting your narrative responses now and give yourself enough time. If you would like access to the Word version of this document, please do not hesitate to email myself or Mitch, and we will walk through that with you. The application itself will have 90,000 characters. We really, truly hope you do not use all of those because that represents 27 pages of narrative text with that, and that doesn't include the layout of the application within EC Impact. So please make sure that if you are starting to run out of characters, you're coming into one of our grant labs, which you can see listed here. We are going to be in our office or available by phone every single Thursday from 4 to 5 for grant labs, except for Thanksgiving. And that will help you craft narrative responses in the sense that we can provide prompting questions to help you navigate how to best represent your program to the Vision Council. And also to do that, we created a sample application narrative checklist. This is a mental checklist to help you as you're crafting your responses really truly address the root of what we're asking for. So we as funders, we never ever just, so rather than asking you, a bajillion questions, we ask you one question, but that question has a lot of elements that we want to see addressed there. So rather than try and have you guess what elements we're looking for, we sat down and described everything that we really are looking for within a program description. And so as you're writing your narrative, we hope that you are checking these off. As we mentioned, drawing that thread from program to strategy to priority to vision statement, we have done a lot of that work here for you. So if you're following along and answering these questions, now what you shouldn't do is answer these questions and not create like a flow through your response. So it's not just, it's making sure that your narrative response can address these questions. We have a very specific definition of collaboration, which is featured here and on the application and within the request for application as well. If you're not sure if your program is a pilot, a new program, or an existing program, we have those definitions laid out for you here so you can figure out what years you need to be reporting on. When it comes to the budget, we have budget definitions, so please make sure that your budget items are aligning with our definitions within our budget. This might be one change you see for the application because we've had the request from some of our programs to add an in-kind line. And so you may see that adjustment come December when you receive official access into your application. We have a demographic step-by-step completion guide, so you should not have any errors within your demographic form. And last but certainly not least, we have a scoring rubric. This scoring rubric will be exactly what our Vision Councils receive in order to score your application. Just as a reminder, we are a 0 to 10 scale with 5 being effective. So if your program received a 50% on the application, that means yes, it is an effective program, but if you don't receive funding, it might just be that there were more elements being completed by other programs, and this is a very competitive process. So again, 50% or better, you did a good job representing your program within the application. But there are some sections that only 5 is available. So for example, your budget. If 10 is a national model, you can't have a national model of a budget. A budget is a budget is a budget. So there might be there should be no miscellaneous expenses or income within a perfect budget, and that all of the budget items should be reflected within your narrative, and it makes sense. If you do have miscellaneous expenses and income, that might bring you down to a 4, but again, that's not bad. It's just 5 is the maximum score here. And the last thing that I want to mention are a couple of just housekeeping tips. Please do not copy and paste from one section of the application to another. This is very hard for the volunteers to continue to read just copy and pasted text. For example, a vision statement might be asked for within a program description, and then again, it might be asked for within the issue area. But you're being asked for that for 2 different reasons. So one is connecting the program and its activities back to the vision, and then the other one is with a vision or mission statement of your organization or your program to the issue area's vision statement and how your program helps achieve and how it's rooted in helping achieve the vision statement for the education issue area. So you wouldn't just copy and paste it without reframing it to the question. Also, do not say refer to X question or back to page whatever. The volunteers, again, are going through many applications and many pages of text. And so when you do that, most likely human nature, they are just going to skip it, and most likely that will affect your score. So please, please, please make sure you are addressing every question within the question itself. If there is a question that does not apply to your organization, please make sure that you're putting not applicable, or you're giving a description as to why it does not fit your program, because if you leave it blank, the volunteers may assume that you just left that question blank. Within the logic model, with each measurement, there will be a narrative box that gets dropped in where you will be asked to identify what evaluation tool you're using, who is implementing that evaluation tool with your students, what success might be if it's an outcome. So you'll have some layers, and this is really to create, this used to be a separate document we asked you to do, but now we are embedding it within the application because, again, we need every program to take this so seriously, just because this becomes a great working tool if there is ever staff turnover, which there has been staff turnover in almost every single program we fund. And so we just want to make sure that we are helping you within this application. You're already spending so much time. This becomes a tool for you then to pass that along to your program staff. So with that, that is all I have. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, the recordings will be available tomorrow through the procedure and key dates file. So thank you all very much.